Welcome to the Vancouver City Council meeting of Tuesday, May the 7th, 2024. This council meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw. City of Vancouver electronic meetings. As such, council members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. Do we have anyone online on council, or is everyone? Okay. Well, I'll read some of this anyways. So a video of council members speaking, presentations, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Okay. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum if they're online. In case of an emergency, where we need to evacuate the building, I would like to point everyone's attention to the glass doors. You walk through them and you walk past the post and go down the stairs. If that exit is obstructed for whatever reason, we actually do have 4 exits here. So find your way to one of them very calmly and then walk down the stairs. Do not use the elevator. I'd also like to bring everyone's attention to the fact that there's a defibrillator just down the hallway here. So if we need one, I guess we will alert someone and we'll make sure we get it here. I also do want to acknowledge that we're hosting today's council session on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And I do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and this love, or the love and care they show this land that we get to live, work, and play on. And I do believe it's incumbent upon all of us to unlearn what we've learned in the past and learn the true history as to what's happened on these lands. If we do that, we're going to build an incredibly bright future full of love and prosperity for all of us and going out way past 7 generations on these lands. I also want to recognize the amazing contributions of our incredible team throughout the city of Vancouver. The councillors and I, we've had the honor to be working side by side with our teammates and seeing them in action. I can tell you, our city is incredibly fortunate to have the incredible people who work here with a lot of love and working incredibly hard with passion for this city. So I want to thank you for that. On that note, if we can please get roll call.
Yes. Mayor Sim in the chair, Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Present.
And Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague has a leave of absence all day today for personal reasons. Councillor Claassen. And Councillor Meisner. And Councillor Jo.
Present.
The meeting has quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great. Before I go into the plan of the day, I just want to mention for everyone's benefit who's watching online here, we just did a proclamation to acknowledge and celebrate National Nurses Week. And just want to give an extra shout out on behalf of council and everyone at the City of Vancouver, the fact that our nurses, so not our nurses across this great city, province, and country and around the world do amazing things to take care of all of us. And we're fortunate to have them really step up, and we absolutely love them. And we want to acknowledge that fact. Okay, plan for the day. Any comments on agenda items can be sent to council using the web form on the city's website. The link to that form will be posted on X at Van City Clerk. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and the city's team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Today, we have 3 administrative items: in-camera motion, adoption of minutes and matters adopted on consent, 8 reports and 2 referral reports, 13 bylaws, 5 administrative motions, and notice of council member motions, new business, and inquiries and other matters. So the plan for today is we will break at noon for lunch, followed by the in-camera meeting at 1 p.m., return at 3 p.m. to continue to deal with the remainder of the agenda, adjourn or recess at 5 p.m. as we have a public hearing at 6 p.m. If we recess, the reconvene date is Thursday, May the 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Now, council is required to meet in camera later this week. The reasons and authority under the Vancouver Charter are listed in the updated agenda. Would someone like to move a motion to go into in camera later this week? Great. Councillor Bly moved it and Councillor Klassen seconded. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Minutes. Minutes 1 are from business license hearing on April the 16th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All right, would someone like to move a motion for adoption? Thank you, Councillor Joe, seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 2 are from the nomination subcommittee on April the 19th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Great. Councillor Klassen moves, seconded by Councillor Joe. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Minutes 3 are from the council meeting on April the 23rd, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No. So can someone move? Great. Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. Great. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Minutes 4 from the council meeting following the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services meeting on April the 24th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Great. Would someone like to move? Councillor Joe, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bly. Awesome. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, council will now consider matters adopted on consent. We have reports 1 and 3 through number 8 and refer reports 1 and 2 on the consent agenda for council's consideration. We will hold report 2 to hear from speakers. Let me just grab the list here. Council may adopt the recommendations for reports 1 and 3 through 8 and refer reports 1 and 2 on consent. Does any member wish to hold any of the items for debate or questions for team members? And Councillor Klassen, I see you're on the list.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull report 4 for a couple of questions. Thank you.
Okay, report number 4, the graffiti abatement?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Hold on one sec. I'll figure that out in a sec. Okay, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to hold report 3 for questions to staff.
Okay, thank you. Report number 3. Councillor Bly.
Yes, mine was also report 3, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fry.
Report 8, please.
All right. Okay, does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on the consent items? Okay. Thank you. Oh, hold on a second. I just got to make sure I have the right numbers here. Okay. Okay, and clerk, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here. We have reports number 1, 5, 6, and 7, and referral reports 1 and 2 for the consent approval. Yes, awesome. Okay, would someone like to move? Yes, it was moved by, let's say, Councillor Joe, seconded by Councillor Dominato. Thank you very much. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, so let me just Okay, so the following have been approved on consent. Report number 1, quarterly capital budget adjustments and closeouts. Report number 5, license arrangements for city-owned properties at 5395 Dundee Street and closed part of 2400 Keith Drive. Report number 6, application of payment in lieu at 55 West Hastings Street. report number 7, closure and sale of a portion of lane adjacent to 906 through 983 West 18th Avenue and 907 through 969 West 19th Avenue. And referral reports number 1, rezoning 988 West 32nd Avenue and CD-1 rezoning 1026 through 1108 West 41st Avenue. Okay. So okay, so the first item we're going to cover now is 2024 property taxation DPRP bylaw, tax rating bylaws, and averaging resolutions. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Seeing none. Great. This item does not have a team member presentation. Council members, you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of team members. Are there any questions? No, I do not see any. Okay, we'll now hear from registered speakers for this report. Public speakers should state whether they are in support or opposition of the recommendations and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they're residents of Vancouver, if it is not noted on the speakers list. Our first speaker is Robin Tavender.
Hello, I had a presentation. Did that come through? Oh, I sent it in this morning. No? Okay.
Okay, yeah, so the deadline for the presentations is 5 p.m.
Oh, it's 5 p.m. too,
day
okay.
before, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. So I read through this report, and the part I'm going to comment on is that the draft bylaws, which I take it you're approving later today, say that they will be enacted in a public meeting. Now, I've commented about this before, but to get into the building, all the doors aren't open. I had to, go to a certain door, and then I have to go, and they screen people at the elevator to see if you're on the list to get up. I don't believe that the bylaw that allows for electronic meetings was ever intended or could be intended and reasonably construed to allow the council chamber to be cordoned off. If the meeting were purely electronic, that might be one thing, but it's obviously not a purely electronic meeting today. So then, after I was permitted onto the elevator and a nice person scanned his RFID tag to let me go up in the elevator to the 3rd floor, which is very clearly a public space. It has artwork, it has all sorts of things. Clearly, any reasonable person who is a student of architecture would look at that and say, this is intended to be a public space for people to come in and look at all the artwork and so forth outside, the pictures of the previous council and so forth. So then I had to go through a screening procedure where I had to open my bag and allow the security contractor to look in my bag, put items into a basket, empty my pockets, and then stand like this. And then they ran the
Point of order, Mayor?
Pardon me?
Point of order. Are we on topic for this?
Yes, we are. Could you please not do that? I'm speaking about why it's not a public meeting. So
I think we're on report number 2. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yeah, it's the property taxation.
So I just would respectfully request that this speaker stay on topic for report 2.
that violates my right under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights to Freedom of Expression, as well as under my right under the Canadian Charter of 1982. You've wasted some of my time. It's clearly on topic because the bylaw says when you will enact them that they are enacted at a public meeting. I want my time reset to where he interrupted me.
Yeah, I will add
I want 45 seconds after at least. And it's interrupted my train of thought. He's done this before. I don't know if he has difficulty understanding English or something, but...
Sorry, okay.
No, I'm not going to be interrupted again by you.
Point of order, Mayor?
You to keep your comments on topic.
They are on topic.
Not,
Some people
make
have
comments
learning
on-
disabilities. Anyway,
Point of order.
No, I didn't mention you.
I don't appreciate being disrespected.
It's
in
not
council
disrespectful
chamber,
at all.
and assumptions made about my comprehension of English or if I had a learning disability or not. So I would just respectfully ask Mr. Mayor that we get the meeting back on track.
So if you can refrain from, making comments about our councillors.
They're all protected under the charter too. It's just no one has money to take it to court. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I just want to, I wasn't going to mention anything about, I just want to say what I came here to say, and I think that's fair. I'm addressing why, in my view, it's not a public meeting. Okay? Okay. So I had to stand like this. They ran the metal detector over me. I had to turn around. Then they run the metal detector over again. Then I'm admitted. In my respectful submission, this is not a public meeting. And when the law courts do things like this, it's done with a specific statutory authority. But then even more, I wasn't allowed in. When I got here, I had to stand and wait in the porch because something else was going on. I don't believe this is a public meeting. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. All right, that is, I believe, the end of our speakers list on this item. Yes, it is. Great. So would someone like to move a motion? Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Joe. Seconded by Councillor Kirby Young. Council members, is there any discussion? Sorry, Councillor Meisner, you're on the. Are you? Oh, no. Great. Thank you. Okay. I'm now going to call a vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Great. All right. And the motion passes with Councillor Dominato and Montague absent. Right. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item on the agenda, sorry, and Councillor Lai absent as well. Thank you. Great. So that completes report number 2. Report number 3 is the next item on the docket, and that's street vending bylaw amendments to temporarily waive small patio and display unit fees to support the Water Street pilot. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Okay, and this item does have a team member presentation. We have team members here to present a 7-page PowerPoint presentation.
I've shared my screen. Will it come up? Perfect. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Danielle Wiley with Street Use Management. As you know, staff has been working very hard with preparing for the Water Street pedestrian zone pilot for this summer. And a critical component of ensuring the pilot's success is considering the potential impacts and benefits for businesses. So staff are exploring a wide range of tools to enable and encourage businesses to participate in the pilot and to maximize the potential benefits for them. The report and recommendation that we're considering today is focused on just one of those tools, and that is to recommend street and vending bylaw changes to waive application and permit fees for small sidewalk patios and merchandise displays. Small sidewalk patios being the bistro-style seating that you see along building frontages. Overall, the financial impact for the city of waiving these fees is modest, but engaging businesses in preparing for the pilot, we heard concerns from retailers and cafes specifically that these business types may not benefit from a pedestrian zone as much as other types of businesses such as restaurants, and they may bear some potential negative impacts. Retailers also expressed a lot of excitement to participate, but noted that there could be barriers to participation, such as upfront costs of buying furniture and displays and staffing. So the objective of waiving these fees is to offer a concrete incentive to these business types that historically don't benefit as much from a pedestrian zone to participate and help to animate the street, and also to allow them to divert the funds that they would have paid towards fees towards buying furniture or displays. So today's report and recommendation pertains to waiving fees only for small patios and merchandise displays, but I'll briefly touch on the ways that we're supporting other kinds of businesses in the pilot zone, including restaurants. So notably, pedestrian zones typically bring more financial benefits to food, service, and hospitality businesses. But nonetheless, installing and creating a larger or a new extended patio is an investment, and we want to support these businesses to participate. So staff have been working one-on-one with restaurants to help scope the largest possible new or expanded patio footprint, to create a streamlined process for them. We've been producing drawings on their behalf that they can use in their applications. We're working with the LCRB on a simple and inexpensive opportunity for temporary licensing. We're allowing restaurants to shift up to 100% of their seats to the patio so that they can take advantage of the additional space. And we're using relaxed guidelines so that restaurants can create a simple patio that's easier to install and remove. Finally, we are prorating fees so that the restaurants are only paying for the months that the patio is installed. And we're hearing that businesses are really excited to participate. So far, we are anticipating 13 small patios and 11 merchandise displays. I want to note that currently in the pilot zone, there are no merchandise displays, so this will be a new use that comes in for the pilot. In addition, we are anticipating 6 large patios and 12 curbside patios in the pilot area. We also wanted to share another new tool that staff are developing to enable business and community activations, which is open streets permitting. Essentially, the city will hold an open streets event permit for the whole Water Street pilot area to enable uses that might not fit into some of our existing programs. Businesses and community organizations can submit their interest in a proposed activation and will receive a go-ahead from staff without the need to apply for a permit or to pay a fee. So this really is a low-barrier opportunity for activations at little or no cost and little process for businesses. Some activations that we hope to enable through open street permitting are live music for patios, which is a really exciting opportunity for us to learn more for our patio program, as well as shared market stalls in designated locations that businesses in Gastown can sign up for and use. And we're also anticipating that over the course of the pilot, we might hear other interests and ideas from businesses and community organizations that will be able to enable in a simple way as the pilot progresses. And the city is working closely with the BIA to help develop this opportunity. That said, I just want to remind Council that today's decision pertains only to the recommendation to waive fees for merchandise displays and small sidewalk patios. And these amendments to the street vending bylaw would allow staff to temporarily waive these fees to encourage these particular business types to participate in the Water Street pilot and help to animate the public realm. Finally, you know that we're approaching this pilot as a way to learn for the long-range Gastown Public Realm Plan, but it's also an opportunity for us to learn and help to evolve our business supporting programs. So this will help to inform future pedestrian zones, but also our regular programs that support businesses. And I'm happy to take any questions from Council.
Great, thank you very much. So council members, you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of our team members, and we do have people or councillors with questions. So Councillor Kirby-Young.
Hi. Good morning. Thanks, Mayor Sim, and thanks for the overview. Very excited to see this pilot coming to fruition. And I know a lot of people are going to be interested to see how it works out and watching it, because this is our opportunity to sort of literally pilot sort of a more pedestrianized experience in Gastown and potentially in other areas of the city. So my question is really around this concept of open, what was the terminology used? Open
Streets permitting.
Open streets permitting. And I think that that level of activation is important. My question is really around, you said, for example, restaurants can have 1 to 2 musicians playing. There isn't the need if, say, you're a musician or a busker to apply for a permit, et cetera. Where is there an overall sort of coordination around that as opposed to sort of creating the enabling regulatory environment and people can apply? Is there going to be some sort of coordination with respects to an overall schedule or a process for that? So that's kind of my first question. And how are we getting the word out to our local musicians or arts community so that they can participate and we can really have maximum energy down there?
We're working closely with the BIA and with restaurants who have expressed interest in having music with their patios to help develop this opportunity. So currently there is a shared calendar for events that's shared between the city and the BIA. And so we're looking at exploring that as a potential tool. And also city staff will have a role in taking in expressions of interest and knowing how many restaurants are interested in taking advantage of the opportunity. So we're still working on developing how that calendar will work, but it is underway.
Okay, and then sort of following up on that, are we doing a sort of an outreach and a push to different groups, organizations we know of, Music BC, any of the others in terms of folks that have participated in our busker permits before in the city?
We're working with the BIA to see what the appropriate engagement plan will be to reach out to.
Maybe for greater specificity, is that an option that the city can do some proactive communications?
We'll look into that and report back. In terms of, I'll say, street entertainment, we are sending out an email to all of our permit holders who have street entertainment permits to let them know about the Water Street pilot and to let them know that there'll be specific busker zones identified.
Okay, so we are being a bit proactive there. That's great. My other question is really switching onto the topic of patios, one of my favorite topics, as you know. And it's really about, do we have potential to explore and continuing to enlarge patios? Because we're finding that, our city is growing. We have more and more people, more and more folks really enjoy the patio culture. It's sort of a positive legacy, I think, from the pandemic. So do we have the opportunity to look at exploring, expanding the size of those?
We've worked really closely with our transportation engineers to understand where the patios could go. And for this pilot, we've scoped as large patios as possible. In some cases, there are more constraints. For example, the blocks that are car light rather than car free, that we do have to consider traffic safety. But we worked hard to land as large footprints as possible for the pilot for the restaurants that have been interested.
Okay, but we could potentially look at kind of continuing that direction in other areas of the city and looking at.
Oh, yes, and
patios
yes.
also? Okay, that's great. And what are we seeing in terms of how we're doing with the schedule for completion of the work with the restoration at the square?
For construction, we know that construction is a really difficult impact for all business areas, and Gastown is no exception. And so we are working very hard to manage the timelines, and as well as managing the timelines, communicate directly with businesses to keep them up to date. And so if there are opportunities to accelerate that construction, or if it's able to finish earlier than scheduled, we would be communicating with businesses.
Okay, so we're doing everything we can to keep it moving.
We're doing everything we can.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor. Thanks very much for the presentation and all the work you're doing. We're really excited to see the pilot get underway. I had a couple questions around the merchandising displays. Is my understanding correct that there will be designated areas for businesses to have merchandising displays, or are they able to put them outside of their storefronts?
Merchandise displays are generally associated with the storefront of the business, and that's partly due to staffing, because a business owner will want to have good surveillance over their wares. And as well, we don't want the merchandise display to necessarily go in front of another frontage for a different business, because that could be a bit of a competing element. That said, there will be opportunities for merchandisers to have a presence in the street through the market stalls that will be enabling through the open streets permitting.
Okay, so they can do both. There'll be
They
the
can do
market
both.
stalls, and then they can also have a small display in front of their storefront.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And how about accepting payment? Are they able to accept payment outside, say with like a mobile payment thing, or do people have to go inside to pay? Is there any regulation around that?
There is currently regulation in the street vending bylaw for merchandise displays do not allow point of sale, but with the open streets permitting market stalls, that's where we are unlocking an opportunity to test point of sale vending.
Okay, but with the storefront vending, they cannot pay outside with, say, like a Square terminal.
Currently, no. Under the bylaw, they're not allowed to vend at the merchandise display.
Okay. Is there any reason why we haven't proposed changes to those bylaws as part of this pilot? It's been a concern expressed from businesses in Gastown that they can't just accept payment outside.
That's something that we could look into and report back to council.
Okay, great. On patios, we're proposing waiving fees for just small patios only. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the small patios are bistro seating along a frontage with no railing. And so it's a bit of a different type, and it tends to address a different business type than the large sidewalk patios and the curbside.
Okay.
And what we had found in our research and engagement was that the benefits of pedestrian zone pilots tend to go towards those larger restaurants and hospitality businesses rather than retailers and cafes. So in this report, we were looking for specific win or incentive for those business types that tend to benefit less.
Okay, but if you expanded an existing patio, for example, say sidewalk patio or one of those larger patios, you would have to pay fees. They would not have those waived. Is that correct?
Currently, you would be paying a prorated fee based on the enlarged area of your patio.
Okay, okay. How about liquor consumption on those patios? I understand there's been some confusion with stakeholders in terms of whose jurisdiction it is to allow for additional liquor seats on some of those patios. I'm wondering if you could clarify that for stakeholders. Is it the city or is it the Liquor Control Board?
It's the Liquor Control Board who allows licensing. That said, we're working very closely with the province to develop a temporary licensing process.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Dominato. Next will be Councillor Boyle. Oh, she's here.
Sorry.
Here, I'm just going to reset the timer.
Yes, I did actually, and I'm sorry if it was asked, but I know that my colleague, Councillor Kirby-Young, touched on music, and it was noted in the presentation around the activations of patios, but we did have a specific request from Guild & Co., established music entertainment and I'm just curious if we've furthered those conversations about a broader activation outside their establishment?
Yes,
Apologies if that was already addressed.
Yes, we've been working closely with Guild & Co. and with the BIA to help us scope the open streets permitting approach for live music. So currently what's proposed is that 1 to 2 musicians can play adjacent to a patio, with the music oriented towards that patio, and that will allow us to test live music for patios for a long-term program.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I just have one question that wasn't mentioned in the report, but in the budget breakdown that council got by email, there was mention of funding for VPD checkpoint on Water Street, and I'm curious to better understand what that is.
So right now we're working closely with our partners at the port, and they're seeing with the traffic management changes some increase to traffic on waterfront roads. So they've engaged a checkpoint, and we're just supporting with additional resources for that checkpoint.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thank you very much. Just a lot happening here this morning. I just wanted to follow up on a couple questions related to the patios. And it was a question when this pilot came forward that I had raised related to moving the capacity seating outside into a patio, limitations around adding additional seats that are non-liquor seats, even in a restaurant context. Can you offer any of your expertise on if that works, how that could work? Do you see what I'm saying? So that the net benefit to the business is that they can have additional seats, but may not need to be liquor seats. So for example, this pilot could be family oriented. They could have, and I use this context because in other jurisdictions that does happen. You'll have like a pub and then they'll have a section that's family where there's no alcohol, or under 18 or under 19 can sit there, and it's not a liquor primary, it's a restaurant. So seen it elsewhere. Do we have that flexibility as we know it? Because I don't know that I have a Vancouver specific context to reference.
So what's currently proposed is 100% transfer of seats, which allows the business to move up to 100% of their seats to the patio, and they can change it. So if it's rainy, they can move them inside. If it's sunny, they can move them outside. So that is a kind of a quick and easy way that we are able to achieve additional capacity for the patios. In terms of
Just to
adding
clarify, that's not actually additional
No, I was just going to say, in terms of adding seats, that's not something that we've unlocked at this point. It is a little bit more complex, and we would need to work with our colleagues in development, building, and licensing because it's a change to the occupant load of the establishment.
Yeah.
So there'd be some building bylaw elements to work through.
Okay. Was it a discussion point when the pilot came forward around opportunities to leverage the Easy Park parking lot in terms of creating some net benefit with the BIA and partnership so that, granted, we don't want people necessarily all driving down to an area where we're car free, but some obviously need to if they're coming outside of Vancouver, across from the North Shore West Van, things like that. So just looking to better understand staff's thinking when it came to access to Easy Park and how we could program that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key points is that with the car light blocks, so we're maintaining access to that Easy Park parkade. And then the Gastown BIA has been working quite closely with Easy Park to think about how to promote actually parking in general in the area so that it's off-street. And so that they've had a bit of a pilot, and my understanding is that's gone well so far. And yeah, they're keen.
So in terms of sort of forward thinking or forward looking in terms of supporting the pilot to the end of the summer, would we want to see that program continue? I know the BIA, specifically Gastown BIA, has championed it all the way down to paying, I think, for the actual subsidizing of the parking for people coming down to Gastown. Is that something that we see as a sort of key action that will enable success around this pilot? Future focused?
I think the objective of getting more people to be aware of the parkades and less dependent on the street parking, especially if we're trying to make more room for people and these other uses, is a really positive thing.
Okay. I don't know if Lisa wants to respond.
Lisa Parker, Director of Public Space and Street Use. A key part of the summer is going to be monitoring who's getting there and how are they getting there. So as we start to learn how people are coming to the space during the summer and kind of the shoulder season, we can start to inform some longer term decisions that might be around the Easy Park and how we want to prioritize that within the pilot as a whole moving forward.
Okay, great. And that's an excellent segue to my next and final question, which is around pedestrian encounters. Yes. So there's interest, I understand, from the BIA and probably the businesses just to understand, and I think the city too, is how does traffic flow change and switch over to pedestrians? Do we see less people coming down to the area? Are there more people coming down? What times of day? Would you say that because I know we do that in different contexts across the city, are we getting the right level of analysis and data from our current setup to track those kinds of numbers?
We are going into this with a detailed monitoring plan that will include pedestrian counters. And so how we're going to be looking at that is we can actually set the time of day. We'll be able to, and we can count people by cameras and different mechanisms like that, as well as actually having people out like staff on foot, being able to kind of count from that different way. So we are looking at how to ensure that we capture as much data as possible around how people are moving through the space, but also getting to and from.
We're using staff.
Sorry, we're at time.
Sorry, I can't see because this title is so big. Thank you very much, Mayor. I will follow that up.
Thank you. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor. I noted in the breakdown of the pilot funding, $250,000 is proposed for placemaking. I'm just wondering, I see a mention about a placemaking feature in Maple Tree Square. So I'm just wondering if that's a permanent placemaking feature or if it's temporary, and if you have any more information on what that might look like.
Yeah, it's something we're working with the Gastown Business Improvement Society, and it will be temporary. It will be for this summer, and just really know that that's such a key space, and we want it to really look fabulous, and so working with our partners to do something fun there.
Okay, so is that like an art piece or a statue or lighting? Do we know yet?
We don't know yet.
Okay, so we're exploring
It's in the
that.
works, yeah.
Okay, great. And then another question was around the street furniture. I saw there's funding for temporary tables and chairs, that sort of thing. Will the Gastown BIA be responsible for ensuring that those are locked up at night, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the furniture is kind of heavy modular furniture that'll stay in place. And then we will have some more movable furniture. And we've already engaged some businesses who are interested because it's also an opportunity, for example, if you're a cafe, to have them out and they'll be helping us lock them up at night. And so will the BIA.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think I'm out of time, right? I can't really.
Makes sense, though.
The title, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just about to ask.
I just can't see the time, so
It
because
says
of the title.
5:05, but that doesn't make any sense.
No, I spoke already, so that'd be out of time.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Thank you.
Then it does make sense. Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Just a question about the patios themselves on the street. Now, my understanding from following this with first staff presentations on it was that the intention was to have some smaller patios and displays of merchandise, etc. Do you have an opinion on the size of patios, whether or not it is oriented towards those smaller patios? Are you anticipating that there might be larger ones? So what is your
We're going to see a real variety out there this summer, where we're going to have some patio footprints that are really quite large and are new for the pilot, as well as some patios that have been there previously and are expanded for the pilot, as well as quite a few new smaller patios that are along the sidewalk. So we'll see the whole range. In part, it's been due to the business interest, and in part, it's due to the opportunities that the street closures present us in order to create those larger footprints.
So that just is part and parcel of what we're expecting to see, quite a diversity.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Seeing nobody else in the queue, I'm happy to move the recommendations, and I'd also like to propose an amendment.
All right. So moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Bly. Council, is there any discussion? Nope. All right.
Mayor, I said, and I'd also like to propose an amendment, please.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you. My hearing's going. It really is. Sorry, did you say something? I'm kidding. That's a joke. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go to the amendment queue. And I have Councillor Carr.
No, I did not touch it.
Oh.
No idea how my name.
All right. We have some gremlins here as well. All right. So I'm going
How's
to,
that?
Councillor Kirby-Young.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Mayor. I want to thank staff for the update and the work overall towards the pilot. I know that Gastown has been awaiting repairs and investment in the neighborhood for a long time, and now we're here and the construction is happening, which is a challenging time always for the neighborhood. But I think there's the construction's going well. Looks like that's going to finish, hopefully as anticipated, maybe early if we're lucky, knock on wood. But I also think that we have a bright light to look ahead with the pilot for the summertime, and we want to maximize this to ensure that it is as positive and vibrant as it possibly can be. I also think there's a lot of learnings that in pedestrianizing this pilot, this pedestrian-friendly area in Gastown, that we have the ability to take away and apply to the rest of the city. And we heard from staff that they are maximizing the size of the patios on Water Street. And I think that we learned during the pandemic, and certainly having brought the original temporary patio motion forward and looked at what a positive legacy that was coming out of COVID. There were very few, so it was a bright spot, was really how much people enjoyed flocking outside and being in the sunshine when we have it in Vancouver, and really creating that kind of culture and that opportunity to socialize. And so in sort of anticipation of some of the work that's been done here and potential ability to expand it positively to other neighborhoods in the city, the amendment that I'm proposing is that staff report back as soon as possible with recommendations to increase overall occupancy for businesses with the intent to increase patio capacity. And just to provide a little bit of grounding in that for council, the language is deliberately general because there's a number of considerations that come into looking at patio size. Sometimes we get hung up on things like liquor regulations, which aren't necessarily our jurisdiction, but as was mentioned by staff, the occupancy level intersects with our building bylaw, potentially some work with DBL, development buildings and licensing. And I think this is an opportunity for us to proactively look at the ability to maximize patio size and give people that continued great experience, not just in Gastown, but in neighborhoods across the city. So that's what this one is looking to do, is to give sort of a broad opportunity to review that and have a report come back to council on what the options are. Thank you.
Great. And can we please have a seconder? Great. Thank you, Councillor Bly. Councillor Carr.
You know, I certainly have in my questions determined that staff are supportive of increasing capacity. I don't think in terms of the language of the amendment, I'm not opposed to it. But in terms of Councillor Kirby-Young's verbal statement of staff maximizing the size, I didn't hear that from staff. I heard that there's a range of sizes from small. Sorry, thank you. What a good assistant. Thank you. So that there's a range of sizes from small to large, and that I believe is consistent with the nature of the streets in Gastown and the variety of businesses within Gastown. So as I say, I'll support the amendment regarding increasing overall capacity, because I think that is indeed the direction that staff are taking. It may be redundant, but it's a clarification in my mind of the intent that I see in staff's report.
Thank you very much. All right. Seeing no one else in the amendment queue for questions, can we put the amendment to a vote? Great. And the amendment passes unanimously with Councillor Montague on a leave. Okay, so we'll go back to the main queue. Oops. We're back in the amendment queue, Councillor Meisner, and yep. I have you in the amendment queue, actually. So we're back in the main queue. Okay, so Councillor Meisner.
Okay, thanks very much, Mayor. I did circulate an amendment, and this amendment is around the waiving of fees. It was originally proposed that the fees and application and permitting fees only be waived for small patios.
So, sorry, Councillor Meisner, I'm gonna jump into the amendment queue now and just advance you and start your timer. Perfect.
Great, thank you. So I did circulate an amendment, as I mentioned, around the waiving of fees for the Gastown pilot. So originally it was proposed that fees only be waived for the small curbside patios. So I would like to expand that support for business in Gastown. But first of all, I'd like to thank staff for all their work on this pilot and the Gastown BIA, which I know has been highly engaged on making the pilot a success. And we're really excited to see it get underway. But really, this is about ensuring that we are working towards our collective goal of making this pilot as successful as it can be. And part of that includes removing barriers for local businesses, so restaurants, bars, and cafes that really create those urban experiences that we all want to see in the neighborhood. So we can close down a street to cars for 2 months and have a pedestrian priority area, but it's really those small businesses, those restaurants, those bars and cafes that are going to bring people to the neighborhood and create that exciting, vibrant urban experience that we all want to see. So in my mind, that doesn't just include the small bistro seating, but it also includes some of those larger destination patios that really bring people into the area. And again, ensure that we're creating a great and successful pilot for everybody. So to some of the points been raised earlier, we are already asking a lot of Gastown businesses to get on board with a pilot that is the first time for them. And I know that's challenging. And as well, the street repairs have been challenging for many of the businesses. And we're working really hard to ensure that work is completed on time and will be worth it. So I really think this is something we can do to not just support the success of the pilot, but also support those businesses that are really taking a leap of faith with us. And they're coming along for the ride. And I am very hopeful that this is going to be great and successful. But it is a leap of faith. So I'm really hoping that we can expand that waiver of fees to all patios in Gastown for the 2-month pilot. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And can we please get a seconder to the amendment? Great, thank you, Councillor Bly. And Councillor Bly, you're in queue.
Great, thanks. I'll just be very brief. Councillor Meisner spoke to pretty much every point that I had written down as well. So happy to second this amendment. And again, this comes back to, I think, the tenor of the conversation when we brought the pilot forward is a real partnership. And I think our staff have worked lockstep, doing something we haven't done before in an area that can be vulnerable to change at times and has taken a huge hit during COVID and around the lack of tourism and other things happening in the area that we sort of said, okay, let's all do this together. And I think that's what this is. It's really nominal in terms of the amount of money, in terms of those fees when the look at the bigger picture of our overall budget, but it makes a massive difference to small businesses. And I think that's the thing that we want to not ever lose sight of, and I don't think we do here, is that $2,000 against our overall budget, operating budget, is not a huge amount of money, is inconsequential really at the end of the day, but it can be a huge, huge amount of money to a small business that's really struggling in a difficult time. So that with the BIA, I think they've done an excellent job at staying in this conversation with us. The pilot passed a few months ago. We're being iterative here. We're making sure we're responding to emerging issues. So we want to continue doing that. So thanks so much to staff and to Councillor Meisner and also Councillor Kirby-Young's amendments that I think are doing exactly that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr?
Yes, I want to back and ask a point of information through you, Mayor, to staff. Thank you. So my question is, why, staff, did you recommend small patios for the fee, no fees? Was there a reason that made sense from a city, our point of view as in governance, regarding differentiating small from larger patios?
Our learnings is that restaurants and larger hospitality businesses do have financial benefits from pedestrian zone pilots. And so we were really looking for a win for those other types of businesses that don't always enjoy those gains from pedestrian zones. So that is why we made that differentiation. A couple of considerations for council in terms of waiving fees for restaurants is that there could be questions from restaurants that are outside of the pilot area in terms of the comparison of them paying fees and others not, and also just in terms of setting precedents for future pedestrian zones or other similar projects that might have a larger scope and geographic area where the financial impact of the city could be greater.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate staff's answer on that. I think there's a logic to have focused on the small patios and as opposed to the larger ones, which have that potential for revenue, much greater revenue coming in. And I am worried about the other areas too. Good point that was raised. I appreciate that. So I won't be voting for the amendment.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to respond to a couple of those points. Certainly understand that the context around the patios in Gastown and the size of them. But Gastown is a really unique neighborhood. It doesn't have a lot of chain restaurants. I think there's one chain restaurant in Gastown. So this is not an area with big chains like Cactus Club or Earl's. Most of these small restaurants, or even the ones with larger patios, are locally owned, and many of them are their only location. As for setting a precedent, we haven't done this in any other neighborhood, and this is brand new. And this is coupled with those road repairs that have been really challenging for local businesses in Gastown. I'm hearing that they're hurting during this period of the road repairs. So in my mind, this is a small thing we can do for a couple months during the pilot only to help support them. And it's not a permanent change. It's just for the 2 months of the pilot. So as Councillor Bly mentioned, it's a nominal amount of money. And it's really about supporting those local businesses and ensuring that even those larger patios can be supported with their expansion, because we want to bring people to the neighborhood. And if people need to come to the neighborhood, or we want them to come to the neighborhood, they need something to do. So those businesses are actually doing us a favor by creating those amazing patio spaces that are going to make this pilot a success.
Great, thank you very much. Seeing no one else on the queue, can we please bring Councillor Meisner's amendment to a vote? Great, and the motion passes with Councillor Carr abstaining. Or the amendment. Right, so I'm going back to the main queue now. Councillor Meisner.
That's it from me. Thanks.
Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I also have an amendment.
Right, I'm going to bring you to the amendment queue. Councillor Bly.
Thank you very much. So as noted in the questions to our city staff around the parking, my amendment is asking that the council approve that the city provide a one-time grant of $20,000 to the Gastown Area BIA to support the parking initiative during the pilot. And we would do so through a reallocation from within our existing capital and operating budget. And it is to be noted, and sort of the similar comments to Councillor Meisner, is that the BIA have already sort of committed to this initiative, and they are already paying out of their budget unplanned significant, I think it's upwards of the amount that's here, and will likely continue to grow and increase. So this is, again, an indication of partnership with the BIA, that we recognize that they found it within their limited budget to be able to cover this parking, to bring people into the area, and we can continue to, again, adapt our approach to this pilot and think about the different ways in which we can continue to support both financial policy, exceptions, temporary uses, all the things that we're talking about right now, to make sure that this pilot is a success. So I'll leave it there. It's pretty straightforward, and appreciate the BIA's initiative to really get this going a couple months ago, and hope that this allows them to continue.
Thank you very much. So seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And thanks, Councillor Bly, for bringing this amendment forward. Happy to speak in support. I know that some people might be struck by the irony, well, we're pedestrianizing Gastown, but yet we're incenting parking. But I think what's important to note here, and I think back to my time serving the Easy Park Board, there's always long ongoing conversations about balancing on-street and off-street parking, et cetera. And it's quite interesting when you look at the stats, how underutilized a lot of our off-street parking and parkades are. And so I think there's a couple of things here, is that, over time, we want to pedestrianize. We're starting with Gastown, create more of these zones in the city, that we can really create a city for people. And hopefully people can do that in their neighborhood. They can walk, they can take transit. There will still be some people that take cars. And in order for us to utilize our streets and our street space to be more people-centered, we need to change people's behavior and support them in looking at alternatives. And sometimes it's easier to just circle or look for a spot in the street than it is to go into one of the parkades. And so I think that's really around sort of a behavior change and sort of helping people recognize that we can do a lot more with our streetscape to be people friendly. And then, as was mentioned, obviously there's a sort of a real financial impact on the local businesses during the construction period. I know that this is something that the merchants of Gastown have long wanted to have. And, sometimes it's be careful what you wish for, because we invested in it, now we're doing it, and inevitably the construction period is challenging. But I'm confident it's absolutely going to pay benefits the other side. So this, I think, is the amendment from Council Bly is really acknowledgement of supporting the community and the neighborhood through the process. And as I said, too, looking at the bigger picture around sort of retraining people into going off-street, because we do have a lot of capacity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. Similar comments to the support for Councillor Bly's motion. As Councillor Bly mentioned, Gastown BIA has been piloting this at their own expense, and it's been a big success. The fact of the matter is that we are making a significant change to the traffic patterns and parking availability in the area. Of course, we want people to bike and take SkyTrain and walk to the pilot, and I'm sure the vast majority of them will, but there are businesses in Gastown that do rely on parking. There's a few furniture stores, for example, that do rely on parking, and I know it's going to change some things for their customers. So I think this is a small thing we can do. It's already been proven successful through the BIA's initiative, and it's all part of supporting this pilot and ensuring that it's a big success. So I'm happy to support this, and I thank Councillor Bly for bringing it forward.
Thank you very much. All right. Seeing no one else on the queue, we'll bring the amendment to a vote. Great, and the amendment passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, so we will go back to the main queue. Councillor Bly.
Oh,
Awesome. Councillor Kirby-Young. Oh, no, sorry, I thought you, sorry, did I just hear that right? You already, I swear to God, my hearing's going and you bounced off the screen, so can we fix, no, sorry, can we fix that? Sorry, I just, because I'm losing my hearing and it jumped. Can we please get Councillor Bly back on the queue there? And so Councillor Kirby-Young, I'm gonna advance. Okay.
I will just say briefly that
All right, now we're all, we'll
I will
pause
just-
for about 30 seconds here.
I will just say briefly, we're very excited about this pedestrian pilot and encourage everybody to come down to Gastown this summer and experience it, not just to support the local businesses, but because it's going to be a really good time. And I think that Vancouver deserves more of these areas. And so thank you to staff for doing everything you can to help make it a success and the Gastown Business Improvement Society and local business. And I look forward to seeing everybody in Gastown.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
thank you very much. I think the Councillor Bly was up on the screen, so you may get people asking, are you Councillor Bly? And we get that another time anyway. Anyway, I basically just echoing Councillor Kirby-Young's comments and really just sending out that positive encouragement to the public that we're creating a space that will just be really, really exciting to be. And while there is the construction happening now, the businesses are open and ready, and the weather is looking very good in the next couple of weeks. So really encouraging folks to come down and support the businesses in Gastown. And again, I think too, just keeping the channel of communication open with the BIA and letting us know what's happening on the street, and also the businesses themselves continue to reach out to us and let us know how things are going. And so we'll continue to be that conduit back to staff, and staff are also connecting directly with everybody on the ground there. So I think we've got a really good team around this to make it a success. So we'll keep working together to make sure that happens. And thanks, staff, for all their work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. No confusion. I just want to really echo some of the comments of my colleagues, and I really appreciate the thoughtful amendments from Councillors Meisner, Bly, and Kirby-Young in terms of strengthening this report. But I think the reason you're hearing such enthusiasm around the table for this is because it is markedly that part of city building and shifting the city, but in a positive manner. And for many of us who've traveled, and I know many residents have traveled around the world, pedestrianized streets or areas or zones is a big part of many cities and communities. And it aligns so well with what we're trying to do in terms of encouraging people to be car light. But just the experience of walking or cycling in neighborhoods is, I think, way better. You see the city differently, especially when you get off your iPhone or phone or something. I've noticed that lately. You start to look up, you start to look around. But I want to speak a little bit to the presentation, particularly the focus on the activations, because I do think is going to be critical to success here is that the activation of the street, and whether that's the retail activation, it's the music activation, it's the patio activation, but really bringing people together, allowing people to connect in that space. This is a favorite neighborhood for many, many people, and iconic. And I do want to add some thanks to Councillors Bly, Kirby-Young, and Meisner, who I know have been actively engaged with the Gastown BIA, specifically around ensuring that this is a success. But I think it is something that is widely supported by this council. And I think once the residents get down there and experience it, they're going to want to have more of it. But that's what we want to do, is we want to make sure it's a success so that people come back. But I'm very optimistic, and thank you to our staff who've, I know, done a lot of work very quickly to move this forward. So immense thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so seeing no one else in the queue, we will put the motion as amended 3 times to a vote. Great. And the motion as amended passes unanimously. So thank you very much. And team, thank you for all the incredible work that you put forward on this. Great. Great. The next item on the docket is report number 4, 2024 graffiti abatement grants to business improvement associations or BIAs. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Seeing none, this item does have a team member presentation, and our team's here. So please feel free to present.
Thank you. Sorry, while I get this ready. Graham Jones. I administer the BIA program in Citywide Regional Planning. And is that showing up? Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today I'm here to present the 2024 graffiti abatement grants to the BIAs. This year we're back because, just to give a little background, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. It is full screen. Yeah, sorry. Just a little background. So with the 5 levels of nuisance graffiti in prior years, Council provided the 22 BIAs abatement grants in 2021, 2022, and 2023. The sustained high levels of graffiti indicates continued need for additional financial assistance this year in 2024. So in response, just to remind, Council approved $500,000 in grants for graffiti abatement as part of the 2024 operating budget, and that was in December 2023. Today's report confirms the allocation of the grants across the BIAs, and it directs staff to execute the appropriate grant agreements to ensure the BIAs receive timely funding. The city's integrated graffiti management program removed approximately 173,000 tags on city-owned property and distributed approximately 249 free paint vouchers. So this is good for about 1 to 2 gallons of free paint, and a free paintbrush is needed. In addition, the BIA non-grant budgets for graffiti abatements, so this is from the BIA's own budgets, it now approaches close to $1 million, and that's a slight increase since last year. These stats show a high level of graffiti issues since 2029, and asking the BIAs report that they are hard-pressed to keep up with the volume of graffiti that emerged during COVID. And this includes sheer number of tags in harder-to-access locations, such as upper floors, frequent repeat tagging, and then racist tags in some areas like Chinatown. And the city, through its own contractor, removes this for free. Funds were distributed to the BIAs, so in the report before you, according to need and using a formula developed by the BIA partnership, which represents all the BIAs. The funds have been used only for graffiti removal, repair of surfaces, and prevention measures. BIAs report the additional funds are still needed and effective. So just, here we go. As reported in Appendix A of the report, the 500,000 grants to the 22 BIAs will be allocated according to the same needs-based formula developed by the BIAs for past years of graffiti abatement grant, and funds will come from the 2024 operating budget. And to clarify, the BIAs did confirm this amount and distribution for this year. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Claassen.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I just have some questions. First of all, can I just recommend that we, move the recommendations for this report? Thanks.
Yeah, we do the questions and then we'll move them on.
All right, so I'll just continue with my questions here. I just really appreciate that this program has been very valuable for our business improvement areas, but tagging and vandalism is a problem in other areas of the city, especially in East Vancouver, such as parts of Kingsway, Clark Drive, and Fraser Street. And so I'm just trying to understand what tools that we can use to deal with properties that are facing chronic vandalism and tagging.
Thank you for the question. So obviously, with my administration with the BI program, that's specifically why we're here today, but the engineering department, they also have an integrated graffiti program, which also responds to, like I have the numbers that comes through 311, and so for last year, like they had 4,100 requests specifically for graffiti. And so through that program, that's how the city responds in that regard.
Is there a way for the city to easily notify property owners if there has been, like months and months of tagging on their buildings?
No, thanks for the question. So for the non-BIA ones, through the BIAs, it would be through the BIA, we'd do that work. Again, it would be through 311 complaints, specifically of working there.
Do we have I don't know what I would just call it. Do we have a number of times that we can report the same property? I realize what happens is usually if something is tagged, it can be tagged again, but there's evidence to show that by covering it up at least a few times, it will lead to better results and less likely it'll be tagged again. But do we have the ability to keep pushing these problem areas, these problem properties that are being defaced and tagged?
Now, that's a broader question. I'm going to just throw this to Chris, who might have a better answer.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a better answer. Chris Robertson, Director of Citywide Regional Planning. What I would say is there is an entire program, that we have in place through engineering that would be able to answer these questions. We can certainly report back to you on those processes and how they deal with problem areas and buildings.
That'd be helpful. And just so I'm clear, these, again, sort of I'm describing non-BIA kind of problem properties, they would qualify for our paint supply services to address the tagging?
Yeah, my expectation is they would, but again, I would have to get our engineering colleagues who really monitor and administer that program to do that. What I would say is that this is kind of a highlight of the advantage of being in a BIA is that the responsiveness of the city and its programs, and in this case, dealing with graffiti can be done more quickly.
Yeah, I realize that. My familiarity is that there are some areas where it's really hard to get the critical mass for BIAs, and that's why those gaps exist in some very prominent places around the city. Okay, well, thanks very much. Those are my questions.
Councilor, just really quickly, I can jump in on that. So our property use team would be dealing with graffiti on private property that's not subject to a BIA. Again, we can follow up with more details on that, but they do follow up with property owners where there's repeated graffiti. So that is something that we do, for sure.
And you bring a good point that a lot of this is on private property, but we also have public things like street diverters and barriers and things like that often get tagged.
Engineering will deal with those. And we have kind of direct connections with, for example, Canada Post and BC Hydro, where there's graffiti on their infrastructure. We have kind of streamlined processes in place to ensure that they're aware of it and are dealing with their stuff too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. I just have a question, and did it talk at all, and I might have missed it in the report around sort of a social procurement lens applied to the grant?
So thank you. The report doesn't specifically speak to that, but the BIAs within their own contracting could be using that. We could report back on specific examples.
Right. So because this is city funds through a grant, we have a social procurement policy and framework. How do we make sure that that is facilitated in some way through the partnerships with the BIAs?
I could answer that in two parts. So the first part is we sign grant allocation agreements with each of the BIAs on how the money can be spent and how they'll spend it and monitor their money. So for their annual auditing, when they send their financial statements, we can see how the money is actually spent. But for the specific question on social procurement requirements, I'd have to get back on that one specifically.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I mean, it would just be helpful to have that piece referenced, and I'm looking to the city manager through you, Mayor, as well, just in terms of how we are continuing to put that intersectional lens on city funds and grants, and given that it is a framework that we have, it doesn't seem to be always incorporated into these types of grant reports, even though I think it does apply.
Not technically, because this is not procurement that the city's doing. This would be procurement that the BIAs are engaging in them. So it would be a piece we would have to take away and look at whether that could or should be imposed as a grant condition around who they contract with to do the graffiti removal. So yeah, we would need to take that away and come back to council on it.
Okay, I'd just be interested in more future discussion then on that. Thank you. I know that Councillor Klassen would like to move. I'm happy to second.
Great, moved, seconded by Councillor Bly. Thank you. Is there any discussion? So seeing no one in the queue, we will put it to a vote. Voting panel. Great, and the motion passes unanimously. That completes report number 4. Right. The next report we have is report number, let's make sure we have that's right. No. Report number 8, alcohol on beaches, 2024 repilot. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Okay, this item does have a team member presentation, and Councillor Fry, you held this, no, not yet. Let's wait for the presentation first. I believe so, yeah. Oh, it does not have, okay, wow, I'm losing it, the eyesight and the hearing. Maybe Tina was right after all. It's a joke on myself. Okay, Councillor Fry, you held this item. You have 5 minutes to ask questions of our team members.
And I may ask for a second round of questions just off the get-go, because...
Sure. Second, great. All in favor of second round? Awesome, approved.
Great, thank you. Okay, so going with the easy stuff. Thank you. So this recommends a reallocation of funds from the existing budget. Do we have a sense of where that's coming from? Maybe this is for the city manager.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. At this stage, we'll be working within our operational budget, looking at reallocations and so on. So no, at this stage, we do believe that we can accommodate this within the existing 2024 operating budget. So that would be a commitment that staff would be taking on here.
And so following up on that, in future, this would be, if it was successfully passed and was going to carry on into future budgets, would this be separated out into a park board budget and a police budget allocation?
Yes, thanks. So, you know, in assuming that the current approach continues into future years, I mean, we would reassess after this year what the resourcing requirements are, because we're still continuing to refine that, and then we would be building that into operating budget recommendations to council for 2025 and ongoing. So for both park board and or city and or VPD.
Okay. And lastly, well, before I get into the questions about policing, I'm curious on the communications, the identified communications plan. There's no mention here about actually identifying where folks are allowed to drink or not. It just mentions alcohol safety, respectful of neighbors, and ensuring that litter gets disposed of. Is there a reason that we're not communicating this as like an alcohol beach or what have you?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Senior Planner Emily Dunlop from the Vancouver Park Board. Yes, in the communications plan, part of the focus will be telling people where they can and cannot drink. This will be part of both the communications to people at home, on their way to the beach, and at the beach through signage and things like that. So that will be, a prominent part of the message.
Okay, because it's not sort of mentioned in the communications piece there, but I appreciate that it will be part of. Okay, all right, so on to, so a significant amount of this obviously is for policing, and I have some questions about, because help me understand why we need, what this policing would look like. Is this a sort of proactive surveillance approach to?
You bet. Thank you, Councillor. Happy to answer the question in regards to the policing. I'm Marco Veronesi. I'm in charge of the District 1, so the downtown core of our city, and I'm in charge of policing resources down there. And so What we're looking at, our suggestion for this plan in order to work with alcohol on beaches is, if you think of it from a perspective of liquor establishments in the downtown core, they have bouncers, they have security, they have people sort of manning the doors, who's allowed in, what's happening with over-service, who deals with that all. On the beaches, there really isn't that sort of those mechanisms in place. So we'd be dealing with park rangers and the police sort of as a combined unit in order to deal with the alcohol on the beaches. And so like our liquor sort of program that we have is we have extra resources on the days that are heaviest for us to police. And so those are traditionally Fridays and Saturday nights and, you know, on long weekends, a Sunday night. And so it's the same that we found over the years on the beaches. Our busiest nights are the Fridays and Saturday nights and the long weekends. And so what we're proposing in this is we're proposing a staffing model that does the north beaches and the south beaches. We have dedicated resources, a group for the south beaches, and we have a dedicated group for the north beaches. What we're proposing is 4 constables on the south beaches and 8 constables on the north beaches for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday nights. And basically, it's a police presence. And so we're looking at a staged model, working with the rangers and the police in order to control and be able to effectively police what we're anticipating to be extra problems down on the beaches.
So, okay, so it's not, because it's pretty light on details in this report, and it really just mentions 12 officers deployed for 8-hour shifts May to August. So this is not 7 days a week, rain or shine, 12 officers on the beach. This is strictly weekends.
This is strictly weekends, yes.
And presumably sunny day weekends.
Yes, yeah, we'll tailor it. And obviously, because we're proposing this model, we'll look at how the resources are. May have to scale it down, may have to scale it up, depending on what our existing resources are within our city. So like in District 1, I have, you know, at any given time, I say I have 20 resources available. I'll dedicate 4 or 5 down to the beaches, and the rest will be in service dealing with calls. So this allows me not to have to dedicate quite as many resources away from general duty and to deal with the beaches. But if I have to pull more resources from the district in order to deal with any extra stuff that's happening down on the beaches, then I'll do so.
Okay, so that's an important piece of clarification for me. So we did have the resources to respond to the violent incidences that happened in 2023 from general duty in whatever district.
We're at time, but we do have a second round.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I have a number of questions, so maybe I'll start and follow up on with the VPD. I found the stats a little difficult to kind of piece together because the stats were provided for a 5-year period from 2018 to 2023 and indicates that some of the violent incidents were up and yet overall calls were down. So I think my question is, help us to understand, how would you be policing the beaches if, for example, this pilot didn't continue? Because we have an additional resource allocation request here, but presumably we did a pilot for 3 months last summer. I'm not clear how many of those incidents occurred during the 3 months. Should we be attributing a lot of them to during the pilot at these beaches? Were they at all of the beaches across? Like, there's not particularly fulsome data in terms of tying these together. And I think your own report says that we can't necessarily correlate the incidents with the pilot.
Yeah, so those were incidents that happened specifically. We determine our beach sort of deployment model from the May long weekend to Labor Day long weekend in September. And so those stats are specifically between those months. So from the May long weekend to September long weekend, that's when those stats are from. And so those are stats that specifically happened at the beaches during those months.
At all of the beaches?
At all the beaches. Specifically, like when you're...
And outside of the...
So those, sorry.
At all the beaches and starting in May, and the pilot started later.
Yeah, but from the public's perspective, the pilot basically started as soon as summer started. So as soon as we have good weather, the public believes that they can go down and drink. That was our experience. We had lots of drinking down at English Bay, even though it wasn't a beach that you were allowed to drink at. And so that caused us extra. So the stats that you're looking at there were specifically for Kitts Beach and for English Bay Beach. We just took the 2 main beaches.
But I don't know if you're able to comment on this, but do you think, in your opinion, I think about the pandemic and how people had no choice but to be outside, and they flocked outside, and I think that that pattern has continued. We see, and our city is growing. We actually have more people coming and moving here. Do you think that you're seeing the violent incidents in English Bay specifically because of the pilot, or do you also think that the fact that we have more people that are crowding to our beaches is contributing to that? Because I wonder, and what I don't see in this report too, just trying to look at it analytically, is do we have incidents going up, a few of them, but do we also have a lot more people that are just out sharing space and visiting our beaches?
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to comment specifically, but my experience, my officer's experience in being out on the beaches last summer is there was a marked increase in drinking on the beaches last summer, and a marked increase of people down at the beaches. So those two combinations caused us a lot of extra difficulties down, specifically at English Bay, and a little less so at Kitts.
Okay, how many of the incidents were at English Bay?
Sorry?
How many of the incidents were at English Bay?
If memory serves me correctly, I think we had 28 violent incidents at English Bay Beach
And how does
during the
that
summer.
compare to the year before and the year before that, when we didn't have a pilot?
I will pull up the data. Take me one sec. I think it was a rise of, sorry, just let me pull up the data here. Apologize.
Because you say from 6 in 2018, I'm wondering about what happened in 2022 and 2021, right? Because 2018 is a long time ago. Maybe while you're looking at that, I'll ask staff another question. And I noticed in the Leger data, it said in terms of what people felt might have been a negative experience at the beaches, it cited that smoking was more of a concern than drinking. Are we going to be addressing smoking? Unless you're ready to respond to the other question.
I'm sorry, Councillor, could you repeat the
Are
question?
we going to be addressing smoking in the communications? Because people actually cited that in the survey, significantly more people, about 40% versus 25 odd, said they were more concerned about smoking on beaches than drinking.
Yes, I believe that that's correct. There's concerns related to noise, smoking, litter that are all associated with drinking. And so as a result, park rangers are working with the general manager's office to develop bylaw updates so that rangers can more strongly enforce things like smoking, and that will be a focus.
Will the communication cover that part?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Maybe I will come back on and save my time to get the answer to that question around the incidents in the last 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. I think I have similar questions. And when the pilot was first reported on, so after our first year, I remember being surprised, and maybe this is going to our park board staff, but I remember being surprised at how little incidents were reported, actually compared to what I was seeing sort of online related to pretty upbeat parties, let's just say, at Kitts. DJ turntables were popping up, like quite extreme photos and videos were being shared online. But yet, so I was just, it was notable to me and in my memory here that very first report of how did it go came back as not a lot of incidents, pretty good, surprisingly okay. And now I feel like it's settled down online, but now this report is saying, okay, now we have a much bigger issue that requires quite a lot of funding to enforce and sort of police what's going on. So I'm sort of just trying to get a sense from your perspective as somebody who's definitely tracking more of the data related to calls and feedback and incidents and costs. Am I missing anything in terms of just that general impression?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. So I'm not sure what report you're referring to after last summer, because nothing from staff came
No,
forward.
the initial. So this is like
Oh, the Alcohol in Parks program.
Alcohol in Parks like 2 years ago.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so the Alcohol in Parks program has gone on for the past few years with relatively little issue. And there hasn't been any significant impacts to park operations and park board staff operating in parks, where the data shows us and the experiences of our staff that beaches are a different story. And we really just attribute it to that, to the fact that in the summer, our beaches, particularly the ones downtown, are the primary public outdoor space for the entire city. So the population and the tourism and the visitation of those beaches has gone up, definitely through the pandemic and beyond. And so that's, yeah, a primary destination. And so, yeah, that's where we are not surprised by sort of the level of people and therefore the level of incidents that are happening at those beaches.
Okay, so given that we know Kitsilano is being included in this as a proposed beach, but not English Bay, and arguably, you know, I think about English Bay and the activity related to the fireworks each year and the amount of people that come down, and I imagine operationally, we're well set up to manage quite a large population in this beach from an operational perspective and from a policing perspective. So it's just surprising to me that from an accessibility perspective, I would say that they seem quite similar, Kitsilano and English Bay, and yet we're saying English Bay is not recommended. And there's a lot of washrooms on site, and it's bigger, and there's more transit, and there's a seawall in and out of there. Like, there just seems to be so many more reasons to consider that. Is there anything else that is not maybe obvious in terms of why those two have been pulled apart?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. I will ask Officer Veronesi to comment more specifically on the difference between Kitsilano Beach and English Bay in terms of incidences. But first, I'll just say that Kitsilano Beach, you know, as we've shown in the data, there has been an increase in the violent offenses trends, but not as significant as English Bay. And of course, calls for service to the beach have gone down at Kitsilano Beach. So less, you know, VPD are being called upon a little bit less, you know, even with the pilot, whereas English Bay is kind of leveled off. But as far as violent offenses, it's been more extreme at English Bay. But I'll pass it now to Officer Veronesi to add to that.
Thank you, Emily, and apologies to council for not having the stats right and wasting your valuable time. So the question, I'll come back to the question of the stats. So like when we're talking about English Bay, we had 28 violent incidents last year.
Can I just have an answer to my question?
Oh, sorry.
And then
Yes.
maybe Councillor Kirby-Young
You bet.
can get an answer.
So specifically the difference between English Bay Beach and Kitts Beach. English Bay Beach, we have a way different demographic that goes to English Bay Beach than we have that goes to Kitts Beach. So the demographic that goes to predominantly that causes us trouble at English Bay Beach is in the 15 to 24-year-old sort of demographic. They come after 7 o'clock and they start causing us problems between 7 and 10 o'clock. They are heavily influenced by alcohol, heavily influenced by fighting and violence, and it causes us a lot of grief. We don't have that same element at Kitts. It seems to be a more controlled, family-orientated, more mature younger adults who are playing sports, those kind of things. At English Bay, we have people specifically going down there to cause issues. And so getting back to your point about the Symphony of Lights, you'll remember in the old days, like when I was first a constable, like we used to call it the Symphony of Fights, and it was a problem. Like we had drinking on the beaches, it was a free-for-all, and it was very difficult for us to manage. But over time and over education and through applying the right resources in order to be able to deal with it, it's turned into a family event, and now it's, you know, free for everybody.
Great. And we're over time.
Sorry.
Great. No, thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I had some similar questions. Perhaps we'll start with policing questions. My big concern is that we would be policing people who are just enjoying a beer or a cooler at Sunset Beach or English Bay. Many people do that, myself included, even though it's not allowed. So I'd like to get a better sense of of what enforcement would look like for people who are having, say, a picnic at Sunset Beach. In my experience last year, they've been doing that, and I haven't observed any issues. I was down there many times myself. So are we amping up that enforcement? Maybe you can explain who we're targeting with this additional enforcement.
The additional enforcement is specifically just targeting, I'll refer to them as troublemakers. So early on in evenings, you can identify different groups that are going to cause trouble later on in the evening. We're not interested in enforcing anything when it comes to regular families, people who are abiding by the law, you know, who are below the radar. So what we're looking at doing is a layered approach, right from volunteers to the park rangers to the police. And so volunteers would sort of be walking through going, hey, this group looks like they might be a problem, report it to the park rangers would go deal with it. And then if the park rangers couldn't deal with it, then the police will step in and we'll move in and we'll deal with it.
Okay, so park rangers first.
Absolutely.
Light approach.
Yes.
Only for people that are potentially causing a disturbance or look like they might cause a disturbance based on their behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Can you remind me, last year for the pilot, 2023, was there any additional one-time funding approved for policing for the pilot?
There was not.
There was not, okay. So it was managed within existing resources?
Yes.
Okay. Next question is a city question. So thank you very much for that, those responses. One of the challenges, I think, with drinking on beaches, and we've heard this from residents, is cans and bottles and that sort of thing being left behind. So I'm just wondering what we're planning in terms of additional bins for those, additional recycling. I mean, there's a lovely elderly lady that goes around and picks up cans from people, which is much appreciated. But are we planning any additional recycling bins, that sort of thing, for people to put their alcohol, or pardon me, containers into at those beaches that are sanctioned and unsanctioned?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and I will answer that, I believe, on behalf of City of Vancouver Engineering Sanitation Team, who were on our working group throughout the course of planning for this. And in collaborating with them, we took a look at recycling facilities across all the beaches, as that is something that we heard through both the survey as well as staff. And so working with engineering, there is a plan to implement more recycling amenities within particular beaches where we know that's needed. So Kitts Beach, I think Spanish Banks is another one, and a few others. So that work's already underway, or will be underway with the approval. And engineering confirmed that they have the materials to do that, and therefore is not included in the budget ask for additional resources and funding.
But can you confirm if that includes Sunset Beach and English Bay? Because just, even if we prohibit drinking there, people are still going to do it.
Yes, I believe they are looking at those beaches as well.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of factors that go into sort of deciding locations for these, including because they're concerned about contamination in the facilities, which impacts provincial regulations for being able to have these bins and getting funding for it. But yeah, they are looking at all the beaches.
Okay. And can you share any details on what the cleanup looks like the following morning? Is there a regular city crew that comes through, or park board crew that comes through to clean up the beaches after, say, like a Friday night or a Saturday night? Do we have a plan for that?
Yeah, maybe I'll start off to try and answer your question, and then I might hand it over to our Director Mack from the Park Board. But yes, there's certainly been extra effort, plans in place for when there's events to have staff come in. I mean, certainly from engineering's perspective, they do extra work, as you may know, with the disposal of waste and the garbage cans, and collaborating with BPD on making them safe. And then, yeah, there are extra cleanup crews that are deployed to the beaches after major events.
Okay, but what about on like after a Friday and Saturday night? That's my question.
Oh, yes. I'm not entirely sure of the details, but we do know that there are allocations for paper pickers that already have been in place, but additional resources are needed for some additional staff for 3 days a week for 12 weeks through the course of the summer.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Right on time. Councillor Fry.
Oh, all right. Back to the policing questions. So are we sufficiently resourced right now to respond to incidents that happen on the beach on a Friday or Saturday night with just our regular shift deployments?
Yes, we have a dedicated beach deployment in District 1. It gets deployed, and we pull resources as needed from other areas of the city, depending on the size of the crowds and what needs to be dealt with.
So where I'm struggling with why this is drawn in, on page 3, it actually says that we can't determine if alcohol consumption was the cause of the increase in violence. And I realize that that's, you know, how you have to frame it, because you don't have the hard evidence, and you're in the job of evidence, but it is a challenge to kind of see it wrapped into this drinking on the beach pilot, which kind of implies that this is the cause for additional police resources specifically to address drinking on the beaches. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Is this a proactive approach that you're hoping to see with an increased budget for policing? Like more pour outs and surveillance and kind of...
No, what I can say is, like, we didn't anticipate this happening. Like, we didn't anticipate a repilot sort of happening. Like, we did the pilot last year. We weren't really made aware that the pilot was going to happen up until the last minute. So we had to constantly adjust and change resources and reallocate resources away from our existing sort of general patrol. So like right now in District 1, I've got 63 calls holding on the patrol board. So I can move resources around to deal with ongoing incidents, but that means the citizens of Vancouver are going to wait longer for the police to come and take their report or take their file. So on the beaches, like, obviously, we have enough people, we have enough staff, we'll be able to deal with them. But then other areas are going to suffer. When you take from one area, another area is going to suffer. And so by doing this, we're setting up a proactive approach, yes. We're trying to cut it off in the first instance and be proactive in our approach, work with our partners in the park rangers, work with volunteers in order to try to make sure that we're adequately staffed and dealing with things in the first instance so they don't become a problem later on in the night. Because what happens when the beach closes at 10 and we do a beach sweep at 10 o'clock, we push a lot of drunk people into the downtown core, which then causes us a whole lot of other issues with people now running around. Just even on Saturday night, we had a group of youth that was moved from English Bay. They went up to Robson Square. We had a brawl of 50 kids that we then had to deal with. So because we didn't have the resources to be able to deal with it in the first instance. So proactive model allows us to be less reactive and lets us to help make the community safer.
So is it fair for me to paraphrase and say that this is really just about more resourcing for policing and public safety in a general sense? Because as you allude, they're moving around the city and District 1 in particular.
I mean, I wouldn't totally agree with that because our experience last year was the drinking on the beaches causes us issues and significant issues and more issues than had in the past. So we're attributing it to the extra drinking on the beaches. That's what we're attributing it to.
Okay, I wish there was a more depth of analysis in here to validate that. Because
to be fair, we only had 1 year.
Fair. Oh, and I see staff.
Yeah, just wanted to add to that's exactly what we're trying to do this summer is to collect more data and determine more concretely what the connection is between the increase in use in park space, the increase in offenses, and drinking, and confirming with more details. So we need to study that more. So that's why we're recommending to repeat the pilot to actually see if we can understand that and if this can be repeated again.
Okay, I'm going to jump off for the
Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for pulling up the stats. So walk me through then. I'm looking at this report that says from 2018 to 2023, we saw violent incidents quadruple from 6 to 28. So can you tell us in the last few years, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, how many per year?
Yeah, 2021, we had 24 violent incidents. 2022, we had 10 violent incidents. And then in 2023, we had 28 violent incidents. And when you factor in 2018 and 2019, there was 6 and 9. So if you look at 2021 as an outlier for COVID, our average is 6, 9, and 10, which is what we're looking at as an average. So even on the high side, if you go 10, and we had 28 last year. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay, so you've been dealing with English Bay for some time and
Yes.
it being problematic in that behavior. So what is different, and you knew about now that it requires additional resources to do this?
The difference is the increased drinking on the beaches.
How do we know that it is more than previously? I know we had a pilot, but I'm also looking at this survey that went on a lot and talked about how people were kind of drinking anyway, and they've been doing it on an ongoing basis. I'm trying to get a sense of like how much we think that's really exacerbating it versus, again, is it because we have a lot more people coming down? Like, how are we going to get good information out of a pilot moving forward? Because I feel like there's a lot of assumptions being made, but not necessarily based in the stats or the what's contributing to what.
Yeah, well, moving forward, so if the repilot goes ahead this year, what we're looking at is enhanced sort of stats and making sure that we search and set our criteria right at the beginning so that we can actually attribute it to what you would like to attribute it to. Maybe there is no correlation. We believe that there is. And so we'll be highlighting keywords. We'll be making sure that we're gathering the right stats. Like I said, last year we were basically playing catch up. We were just trying to stay on top of everything. And so we weren't able to get the best stats in the world. We have our files, we have the actual violence that occurred, but we weren't able to attribute it to one thing or another. In the downtown core, when it comes to the liquor establishments, we're able to link it back to these guys were drinking at this liquor establishment at this time, and so we can actually attribute our stats to something tangible. Whereas with these stats on the violence on the beaches, all we can attribute it to is it happened at the beaches.
Okay, so we will get some more detailed stats back that council
Absolutely.
can look at to inform this in terms
Absolutely.
of, is it that ongoing that's always been there, sort of 7 to 10 in the evening, or is there anything that's happening that's specific more to what I would describe as the pilot behavior, where people might be down during the day, they went to the beach to enjoy the sunshine, and they had a cider while they were doing it?
Sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
I guess I'm asking the question, are we going to be able to delineate between, say, a group of friends or families that go down to the beach during the day? They know it's a pilot now, they can openly have a cider, they're fine, they're not bothering people, versus, like you described, what's always been that challenging element of kind of more of the evening, younger demographic that's coming down? Are we going to get that kind of level of insight?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, sorry. I have a sort of a different line of questioning, and that is, I am wondering why, as opposed to normal practice, we have a recommendation from staff that lumps approving a repilot, a new repilot, with the funding of it sort of together. I think normally I've seen where we approve of an action on the part of that city staff will take, and then approve in a separate clause around the funding. And this is important to me because I do see the repilot as different from the funding of VPT around the pilot. So if you can just explain to me why it's all sort of lumped in.
Councillor, I can start, and then happy if colleagues will jump in. So I think that part of this largely is a function of jurisdiction. So it's not council's jurisdiction to decide what happens on beaches. That's park board jurisdiction. What's coming to council is the funding decision. So in order for park board to operationalize their decision, they require additional resources, including both for park board and for VPD. So that's a funding decision for council, and that's what you're being presented with. Not the question of whether drinking should be allowed on beaches or not. That's park board jurisdiction.
All right. So, okay. And so, apropos of that, what has park board, if it could be explained on public record, what the park board has decided on this issue already?
Thanks for the question. Steve Jackson, General Manager, Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation. So we presented this to our board last night. They approved the pilot in principle as presented the same way as it has for council in that report. So the same included beaches as you see, as well as the same excluded beaches.
Okay. And park board, a second question then, and park board doesn't have the authority around the funding. Thus, that's why this report is here. Is that right?
Correct, and they don't have the authority around the VPD resources. So again, this is a multi-department pilot to be successful, so we wanted to make sure both Park Board and Council were weighing in on that decision. But as City Manager mentioned, it is Park Board's decision what happens on beaches.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So I don't see anybody. Oh.
Yeah, Councillor Fry literally just jumped on.
So actually, and maybe this is for Steve Jackson. Actually, in the final question, I'm curious then why this is being wrapped into two, because it does seem like a very separate ask for policing and for park operations, which could have been done independently with a request for more policing resources, and we wouldn't even have had to come to us for this request. Am I correct in that assumption? If it didn't include the police resources?
So when we approached this, we couldn't do one without the other. We wouldn't be able to support a successful pilot without VPD being ready to operationalize and having the support through the funding to deploy the extra resources. So we did see these as combined, and hence why we've presented as well to our board the VPD component, the full costing of this pilot, and that we would be coming to council to seek those funds.
Okay, well, I'm out of time, so.
Great. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, so I just want to make a comment around the issue of policing. I think the pilot going ahead is a good idea, but as I understand, that's not really our decision. That was a decision of Park Board. The question is around the policing then, in my mind. I found the appendices really interesting in this report, and specifically the appendices which talked about the surveys that were done of Vancouver residents. And I really found the fact that most people are very happy with it, with the idea of drinking on beaches and participate in it, and they feel safe and comfortable, and it doesn't seem to be a big issue. That many people are aware of it, that they like the idea, that this is an affordable option, it's a benefit as far as they can see. The frequency is very high. And as I say, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of fear or concern around negative incidents. So I'm very positive around the repeat of the pilot. And even pursuing, as many residents have said, other beaches. But that isn't our decision. I am very reluctant to see the increased funding of the police on the beaches. I believe that when calls are made, that those calls are responded to, obviously, that there seems to be some contradictory information around how many calls come in, even in the report itself. At one point, there is a statement made that 311 calls, this is page 3 of the report, complaints, 301 calls in 2023 only resulted in 19 complaints. Later on, it talks about that those numbers have increased, so there are larger numbers than that. A bit confusing for me, but generally what I read is that people in Vancouver, in general, given the surveys we've done, seem very supportive of these pilots, and that do not feel that sense of fear or concern around incidents. And when those incidents happen, they're very few. So I'm reluctant, as I say, to support the police presence, except for when obviously a call goes in and it's determined through 311 and 911 that this is an emergency. This is really a serious call, and of course, the police belong there. Am I out of time?
Yeah, you're over time. Sorry.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Appreciate being.
Great. Councillor Klassen.
Thanks, everybody. Great discussion, and I'll just have a couple of quick follow-up questions because I haven't been able to really glean this kind of information just to help me a little bit understanding of the problem that we're responding to with additional policing and other monitoring of our beaches. Are there any clear patterns when it comes to incidents that result in additional litter and or require a police response? So, such as like the size of groups, the age of groups, or the time of day?
I can respond to the time of day for us is like I said, once sort of the families start leaving the beaches at around 6, so from 7 o'clock onwards to close, so from 7 to 10 is our market increase in violent crimes and crimes that require the police to be in attendance for.
Mm-hmm. That would seem kind of obvious, but again, nothing else in terms that would sort of distinguish why we have problem beach users that kind of abuse that permission to be able to go in. Sorry, when it gets when the sun starts to go down.
Well, it's our sort of theory is that the access to English Bay beaches, with SkyTrain being so close and being able to walk down to English Bay Beach, is very popular with the youth, and they're our major source of issues.
And how do you explain the incidents happening on Trout Lake? I noticed that they're also flagged as being pretty high.
We didn't, from a policing perspective, we didn't have many interactions in Trout Lake, and I'll turn it over to Emily.
Yeah, actually, I believe, thanks for the question, Councillor. I believe you may be referring to the 311 reports. Yeah, that was about 5 calls on 311 last summer, and it was from, most of them were from the same resident. So it was, more reference to noise and things like that.
An anomaly then. Okay, thank you very much. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Councillor Carr.
Yes. Oh, we haven't come to move anything yet. Sorry. Well, actually, I will move an amended motion. My amendment to a motion, which has just been.
Okay, so, sorry. One sec. No, we have not had a seconder for the main motion. Great, Councillor Klassen, and now the,
Sorry, I have a point of clarification, Chair, if I might.
Yep.
I heard Councillor Carr say she was moving an amended motion. Can we just get clarification if Councillor Carr is moving the original report and then an amendment, or is moving an amended report?
that's a great question. So are you moving the motion, sort of the main? For,
So
Was
the main,
presented to us.
So-
Chair, my question is that to clarify that the main report has not been moved or seconded yet?
that's right. So we need.
So I'm happy to move it to get
You're
this
going to
going.
move the, move a motion, and then you're going to second it. And then, council, is there any discussion, which then we will go to,
Since the original motion was not, or recommendation was not moved, I just said that I would move an amended version of it. So I've sent in new wording, which is which is the first motion on the floor.
thank you, clerk. So my understanding of this is we have to move the motion first and it gets seconded. Then, we have discussion, at which time any councillor can move an amendment. Is that correct?
Well, I moved an amended motion.
Thank you, Mayor Sim. My understanding is Councillor Carr has moved a motion to the floor, which council has the right to do so, that changes the staff recommendation. That is proper.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
But it does require a seconder.
Okay. So we're clear. Councillor Carr is moving a motion.
It's been
on-
seconded?
Yep, and seconded by,
Oh.
that's not what's being moved, evidently.
On the screen.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Carr's motion? All right. Councillor Boyle seconded. Council members, is there any discussion? Councillor Fry. So are we, sorry,
I
question
should be
for you.
still on the
Sorry.
list. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
this is still, we're in the main queue right now. All right, and so is Councillor Carr on there? Because I have Councillor Fry. Let's hold up. So I'm going to advance that. Does Councillor Carr go on it before Councillor Kirby-Young?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we're just working through the cobwebs here.
Speaking into the microphone, apologies. I believe it got a little confusing there because the council thought it was coming forward as the main motion with an amendment, but it was clarified that it was not staff's recommendation, but a council motion put to the floor. Therefore, appropriately, Councillor Carr should still have the floor.
Okay, so I'm going to advance Councillor Kirby-Young, and I'm going to add Councillor Carr to the amendment queue, right? Or no, the main queue. Where are we here?
I should be
Yeah,
on.
we just did. All right. All right. There we go. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, fellow councillors, my motion does not really change what was recommended by staff, in the sense that it focuses, and due to the information I've been given by the city manager, just focuses on our responsibility and jurisdiction. So we are my motion is to support the park board decision to approve the alcohol on beaches repilot in the summer of 2024. And then further that it be funded exactly as the original report said, through a one-time reallocation within, it should be within the city's 2024 approved budget. And the reason I really wanted to separate this out is that it put me or anyone else on council who may not want to see the funding go forward, but likes the pilot, to be able to vote to say that we support that pilot. It's a great idea. We just don't support, or in my case, I don't support the amount of money coming from the budget. The reason being, I just don't, or the amount of money to the VPD. And the reason being for that, that I'm not seeing the evidence for the need for that kind of a level of budget coming from us in the city to the VPD. I'm not seeing that reflected in any of the information I read, that there is a huge amount of concern. There are some incidents, yes, they are handled by police, but this is a big chunk of money. And I just think that we are wanting to see the pilot. And if there are, obviously, we can reassess this again next year if we need to. But I'm seeing the public really loving and supporting this pilot. And so I would call at the same time for the vote to be severed when we come time to vote between the two different paragraphs.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Carr. Or sorry, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Can I get my time restarted? Because I'm just starting now. I'm not a minute in. Thank you. I have a point of information through you, Chair, to the City Manager, and maybe you can just help me with understanding your staff's interpretation of this, and perhaps I'm missing something. But I read this, it changes nothing. We're still going to fund the pilot. We're still going to fund it to $930,000. It's still going to be funded from reallocation, and the money would still be spent on park rangers and VPD support. Is that correct in how you read it? So is there any distinction that you see in terms of the actual allocation of funds, where it comes from, or the operations based on this new language? Because I can't find any.
Thanks through the chair. I note that the revised version doesn't actually reference the amount that staff have recommended that council would be funding. We can infer that it's the amount of $180,000. So that's one distinction. I do think it's important, and just to clarify from a staff perspective, and would concur absolutely with the GM of the Park Board and the Vancouver Police, that we're only recommending this pilot go forward with the recommended resources.
Right.
In our view, it would be unsafe and ill-advised to proceed with this pilot without resourcing it properly.
Thank you.
What we saw last year was a significant concern.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And so just for crystal clarity then, if council were to consider this language, which to me doesn't make any sense, would you still, based on what's contained in the report versus the language in the resolution, would you still spend $930,000, and would you still spend it on the same two areas that you've identified in the report?
Unless council tells me that we're wrong, we would assume this would be approving and assume both sections of the motion as drafted are approved. We would be allocating $980,000 as recommended, and we would proceed.
Okay. So with that information, and I've scanned my procedure bylaw, I don't necessarily see a rationale for being out of order, but I'm really wondering at 11:37 when we break noon for lunch, why we're dealing with language that changes nothing versus dealing with substantive issues. So to me, this is a complete waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I won't be supporting the amendment. I think that I appreciate that there's two pieces here. There's sort of endorsing the idea that we can allow alcohol on beaches, but if we don't fund it to be a success, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So regardless of all those other pieces, I can't support the amendment.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do have a point of information through you to the city manager. And it is actually with respect to the staff recommendations and just a clarifying question. I had to read it a couple times because it says approves the one-time 2024 operating budget increase of $930,300. Is this indeed an increase to the operating budget? Because when I initially read it, it was around a reallocation, and I just wanted to clarify that language.
Thanks through the chair. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. You're correct. We probably could have framed that differently. We are expecting that this would be absorbed within the operating budget, but it's essentially approving the reallocation to the purposes noted in the report.
Okay, so it would be, and when I have an opportunity to get back on the queue, when we've disposed of this other motion, I could move to strike increase. So it'd be approves the one-time 2024 operating budget or reallocation. I think increase, at least the way I read it, was it meant we are actually increasing the overall operating budget, even though it says it's a one-time reallocation.
That's
should amend
correct.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll deal with that separately. And I won't be supporting the amendment tabled by Councillor Carr. Thank you. Councillor Carr, I'm referring to the staff recommendation, not to yours, but I just wanted to clarify it in the context of what was being proposed. Thank you.
And sorry, I didn't hear, did you say you?
I will not be
Will
supporting.
not. Thank you very much. Okay.
I will be
Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I also have a question through you, Chair, to the city manager related to both this language and the staff recommended language, which is where at this point in the year do we find nearly $1 million in our operating budget to reallocate? What are the impacts of, I assume we don't have it just sitting around and unallocated so far. So where is it coming from?
Thanks through the chair. So we do have risk provisions within our budget for contingencies, operational contingencies. That's one. We do have some staffing lag this year.
Okay.
So at this point, it would be a matter within kind of the overall operating budget. We believe there's enough room at this stage to cover this amount off.
Without impacts to existing
we wouldn't be reducing other services.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. And then I think this got asked in questions earlier, but it would then be new expenses for next year's, an additional $1 million as a additional new investment for the 2025 budget.
At this stage, it may be a different amount, again, depending on how this year goes. I think as the inspector referenced, for example, on the policing side, we may need less resources depending or more. So we would reassess that for 2025. But yes, we expect there will be an ongoing incremental resource that we would need to build in as an ongoing expense in the budget for future years.
Okay.
But it may not be 980.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, and I just want to clarify what we're voting on here. So we are voting on Councillor Carr's motion, not amended motion. And then after we vote on that, if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't pass, then we go back to what was originally presented. Is that correct? I just want to be as clear as mud for everyone here.
If it passes, it would be the approved motion. If it does not pass, it's council's choice to continue on with a different motion.
Okay, great. Does that make sense for everyone? Great. Sorry, and you did. Okay. Yeah, okay. So if we can go to the voting panel, the first thing we're going to do is vote on the first paragraph, that council support the park board decision to approve the alcohol on beaches repilot in the summer of 2024. Yep. Sorry, Councillor Clausen.
Yeah, Chair, I'm looking at the original staff recommendation here, and this is this the same language here in the original recommendation?
Clerk, is that?
Council support the decision to approve the alcohol on beaches repilot in the summer of 2020. I mean, again, very benign, sounds fine, but is it irrespective of? Okay, so I see what you're doing here, Councillor Carr, is that you're actually breaking out the
first and second,
where the money comes from. So I guess is a way of summarizing it. All right, I'll support the original sentence, even though it is a bit confusing. Thank you. The first item, A.
Okay. And it passes with Councillor Joe in opposition. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to vote on the second part. And bring that back up, please. So further that the repilot be funded from one-time reallocations within the city's 2024 approved operating budget. And we're just waiting for Councillor Kirby-Young and Councillor Klassen to. Councillor Klassen? Is that a question through? Okay, we're gonna vote. So, okay, basically the motion fails with Mayor Sim, Councillors Carr, Kirby-Young, Dominato, Bly, Klassen, and Joe in opposition. So now we're back to the main queue. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. If I'm correct procedurally, we now need to have somebody move an amendment to include the original clause so that we can actually get this voted on. So I'm just sending it in. But as I'm doing that, just talking everybody through, I am going to move an amendment to include the clause that was in the original one. I just need a second here so that we can vote on that one.
Sorry, point of procedure. I'm going to stop the timer for 1 sec here. So evidently we have to file a new motion and not an amended motion. Is that correct, clerk?
I'm now moving an amendment because now what we have now is an amended motion on the floor, is my understanding, that only has one clause, which is the one that we support, that council supports the park board, and we have nothing else on the floor because the original motion was not moved. That's my understanding, and so therefore, I've emailed an amendment into the clerk if they want to bring it up on the screen.
Is that
Clerks?
sorry?
Clerks?
Just through the chair. Is that correct? What Councillor Kirby-Young?
And so if that could be brought up on the screen, then I can speak to the amendment.
Do we need to take 2 minutes to make sure procedurally we're very confusing?
Can I get my time?
Just getting it up on the screen.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
I'm happy to walk through the.
Sorry.
Don't worry, I stopped the timer.
Okay. So Mayor, may I go ahead?
So
on the screen?
We're just figuring out.
Yeah, so Mayor Sim, Council, the original motion that was put by Councillor Carr and seconded and therefore became part of the floor, the entire assembly, the first part of it was approved and the second part of it did not get approved. So therefore, my opinion would be that the motion can be, the main motion can now be amended. My apologies when I didn't say that originally.
Thank you very much. We're all working through this together. So now, Councillor Kirby-Young, you can follow your, I'm going to put you in the amendment queue.
Thank you.
If you can please log on. And it's been seconded by Councillor Klassen. Councillor Kirby-Young, you have the floor.
Yeah, so just to walk everybody through here, since we had a revised amendment, so everyone's following, we're on the same page, that was moved, we no longer had this clause on the floor. So I am, through an amendment, reintroducing this clause, which was the original recommendation from staff that contained the budget amount and speaks to the intention about how that is used in the reallocation. I would like to ask one clarifying question through you of staff, if I might. And that is just around this word increase, the question that was raised previously by Councillor Dominato that's in there. My understanding is that it is a reallocation in the budget, and that's simply accounting speak, because there is a process where those two individual budgets are increased, but there is a reallocation from within other areas of the budget. Is that correct, and that we don't need to get hung up on language? Because I just want to clarify that, because that might be interpreted differently by different folks.
Thanks through the chair. I think, as per the question from Councillor Dominato previously, yeah, the intent is not to increase the city's overall operating budget. In fact, it's probably better characterized as a 2024 operating budget adjustment rather than an increase. I think the last phrase there, funded from reallocations, does clarify that, but the reference to increase is potentially confusing. We certainly as staff understand what it means. So it's really council's prerogative if you wanted to amend that or not. Again, I think adjustment is a better word than increase, and that's, that's on us as staff, but hopefully it's clear what we're proposing here in this recommendation.
Okay, so hearing that, Chair, if it helps to move this along, because I'm just interested in getting us through this, I've sent in just updated language, and I'm hopeful that clerks can just do that on the floor. I don't know if it requires amendment. The amendment, if we could just do it to change increase to adjustment, and hopefully we can just put this to bed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
It's moved. Thanks, Mayor.
Good. Okay. So, good. Great. Right. So, seeing no one else on the queue, we will put Councillor Kirby Young's amendment to a vote. We can please go to the voting panel. Great, and the amendment passes with Councillor Carr in opposition and Councillor Fry abstaining. Okay, so now we will go back to the main queue. Councillor Kirby Young.
Nope, nothing further. Thank you. I mean, well, I will say this, and I think that we want to make sure that we have a successful pilot. And yeah, I do think it's important to say that I think what is happening in terms of the amount of activity that we're enabling in public space across the city, whether it's the Gastown pilot that we were speaking about earlier, moving to pedestrianized public space, or whether it's allowing adults to be adults outdoors, whether that's in parks, some of the areas in downtown or in the city that were piloted, as well as the sort of 70% very popular public policy shift to allowing people to responsibly have a beverage outside at the beaches, is that this is really about working to normalize behavior. And that sometimes does take a transition and a period of time for people to adjust. And so there's an education component there. There's an operation. There's a need to operationalize some of those changes, both with the park board and with VPD, and for the public to get used to doing that. I think the positive takeaway that we're seeing here is that there really were not dramatically a lot of issues. When you think about how highly visited our parks and beaches are now, and that's continuing to increase, and our population is growing, calls for service based on the stats from VPD are actually going down. We have a small segment of behavior that we need to deal with. And I think it's a situation where we want to normalize that, make this normal adult behavior, have people enjoy responsibly, be respectful, thoughtful about their neighbors. And we don't want to have a few folks that might have problematic behavior spoil it and take it away for someone else. So from that perspective, I'm sort of willing to support the additional resources here. I do think that our park rangers have historically been understaffed and resourced, particularly because, as we said, during COVID, people loved being outside. They still continue to be. Our city's growing, more people are moving here, and people are living in smaller spaces, and they're going to continue to really value those spaces and want to be outside. I'm hopeful that the VPD can operationalize this amount within their existing budget. This is a council that has fully supported the PD and provided a significant amount of resources. So this might be a moment in time, but I think that we need this to become part of regular operations and not looked at as a special additional service that is being provided here. So I will make that note in terms of what we are looking forward to for upcoming budgets. But we want to make sure this is successful. It's in everybody's best interest that it goes smoothly,
Councillor
that it
Kirby.
goes well. Thank you.
Sorry. Awesome, thank you. And just doing a time check here, can we maybe have someone motion to extend, just to clear this item? So Councillor Bly, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. So we will continue until we finish this item. Councillor Dominato.
That's a holdover, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think it's exciting that we are launching this program again. It gives an opportunity for many Vancouverites to responsibly enjoy our parks and beaches. For example, have a barbecue, have a glass of wine, all while, of course, putting their cans or bottles in the recycling and cleaning up after themselves. And I know that the vast majority of Vancouverites do that, and they are hungry for opportunities to get into nature in our city and connect with their family and friends. And sometimes that involves having a drink while you're having a barbecue. And I think it's great that we are allowing this in our city. There's huge affordability challenges in our city. Not everyone can afford to go out to restaurants. So this gives people another option. But it's also important to ensure that we have public safety if the situation did perhaps escalate. And I feel confident that our park rangers and our police members can handle those situations. So I am supportive of this, given that we have struck the word increase. As several of the councillors have mentioned, we have increased funding for public safety in Vancouver, and this funding needs to be accommodated through a reallocation as opposed to an increase. So with that word struck and clarified, I'm comfortable supporting the funding for this pilot, given the positive benefit it provides to Vancouverites. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And I need to cede the chair to Councillor Joe. Awesome, thank you. I'll keep my comments very brief. I just want to mention to the team, VPD, Parks, Engineering, we're in this chamber because we're supposed to ask, tough questions, but make no mistake about it. We love what you're doing. We know how hard it is, how much thought is put into this, and you're driving to fulfill the mandate that we put out there, making this city a way more fun place to be, and ensuring that we can enjoy our parks, in a very safe manner. And so, while it may feel like you sort of got punched in the stomach, so to speak, please accept our incredible gratitude for everything that you do. And we think you guys are awesome. So that's all I had. Awesome. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, I was prepared to introduce some amendments to sort of separate out the policing budget, but before getting boxed in with some of these amendments, I don't think it's germane anymore. I do, want to reflect that I wish there was a more proactive communications piece that was clearly articulated in here, and I really would have preferred to see the policing piece separated out, because I think if we need more resources for policing, then that's a separate conversation. And I do worry that this implies that we are going to be increasing surveillance and policing on the beaches, although I do appreciate the clarification that's been offered by VPD that that's not the case. But recalling why, a lot of this approach was taken during the pandemic, when we looked at creating opportunities for public plazas, parks, and beaches on the whole. And one of the big recognitions that was that people who traditionally feel over-policed, we recognize that there's a privilege that many people of means and perhaps gender and ethnicity can enjoy on beaches where they feel fine to have a glass of wine and watch the sunset. That is a privilege not afforded to everybody, and certainly certain populations feel over-policed. And I think that we haven't reflected some of that kind of serious equity consideration in how we've kind of tied policing into this pilot. It was supposed to be about kind of normalizing an opportunity that many Vancouverites enjoy. And I feel like we've put so much rigor and rules on this and the notion of surveillance and policing tied into it that it kind of takes away from the pleasure that many people enjoy of the escapism of enjoying the beach with a glass of wine or a couple of road pops. Nonetheless, I will generally support this with an abstention vote. I do think that we need to have a more thoughtful conversation around where we're separating out resources for park programming and then policing as two entirely separate items. But because I'm kind of boxed in here, I'm going to have to go with the majority. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just sort of acknowledging something that Councillor Fry just said there. COVID changed a lot of things on how we do business in our city. And it also had a huge impact on really our social fabric. And I believe that the fact that we are attempting to be more proactive and creative in terms of how we use our public spaces, including adding the ability to have an alcoholic beverage in those spaces is, truthfully, an innovation that does result from the societal impacts that happen there. I confess the costs are a concern, but we are framing this clearly as a one-time investment, and I think an important investment. It's clearly a very popular public thing to do, but it also gives us the ability to make socializing more affordable, more available. It gives public the sense that that they are going to be treated like adults, so we will expect them to respond in kind by not overusing beverages and not leaving the place a mess or causing disturbances that are going to impact other beach users. I think that this has to be seen as a positive move and one that I'm going to be supporting. I really am concerned that with some of the greatest concerns that are impacting, especially young people, just saw recently at the LMLGA conference a presentation that talked about the number one killer of young people is toxic drugs, and next to that is very sadly suicide. And a lot of this is stemming from our inability to really reconnect. There are profound implications of a society not being able to get together, socialize, and actually be able to be together and having what's described as a social lubricant, a can of beer or a glass of wine or a cider, is a really great way for people to make those important bonds and connections. And I think by again making this investment, this goes some way to reducing the stigma that is perceived of people drinking outdoors like this one. Around the world, this is very commonplace. In Vancouver and in British Columbia, we've had a bit of a rocky history with this, probably a lot to do with our history. But now we're at a time where I think it's absolutely vital that we give people the ability to enjoy these public spaces to their fullest. And I think that these investments will go a long way towards doing that, including helping to really change our approach and changing our culture towards being able to have a drink in a public space like this. So with that, I will be supporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe.
It's just regarding the time, and we moved to extend to complete this item, but also... No, it was to complete this item. Oh. And so I just want to see if we can quickly amend that to complete the agenda before we break for lunch, since we are almost at the end of the agenda.
Second. Awesome. So all those in favor of extending to complete? All those opposed? Great, let's complete it. Thank you very much. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I will be very quick. So I personally do not drink alcohol at all, as I think many of you know. But I know people in Vancouver, they like drinking, and with 70% supporting. Yeah, more than 70% are supporting this pilot from this report. So if we want to do the pilot, we need to do that correct. So with the support and the resource needed for the Vancouver Police Department and also our Vancouver Park Board. So this report does exactly that. So it will support our residents having a more relaxed environment while drinking on the beach. So I'm going to 100% support this report. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'm now going to ask call a vote, and if we can please go to the voting panel, and if we can vote on the report as amended. Councillor Fry. Oh, thank you very much. And the motion passes as amended with Councillor Carr in opposition. That completes report number 8. And Councillor Joe, maybe if we can take 30 seconds.
All right, Council, so let's continue with the business. The next one is the bylaws. We have 13 bylaws on the agenda for the enactment. Council members who are not present for the meetings related to the public hearing enactment bylaws must confirm that they have reviewed the proceedings of the meetings if they want to vote on the enactment. Bylaw number 5 was from the public hearing on April 25th, 2023. Councillor Montague, who is, but he's not here today. Okay, that's good. We don't have to do that. Okay, bylaw number 6 is from public hearing on April 25th. Oh, sorry. Also, Councillor Montague. Okay. Second. Okay, so bylaw number 3 and number 4 were subject to the approval of bylaw number 2, and the bylaw 12 is subject to the approval of bylaw 11. So as a result, we will need two separate bylaw votes. Okay, would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaw number 2 and 11? Moved by Councillor Fry, is seconded by Councillor Meisner. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. Opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaw number 1, 3 to 10, 12, and 13? That's Councillor Dominado. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. The list of approved bylaws can be found on the city's website. Okay, now we're going to move to the administrative motion. So number 1, resolution, closure and sale of the portion of lane adjacent to 906 to 982 West 18th Avenue and 907 to 969 West 19th Avenue. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to team members? Okay. Would like someone to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Blythe. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. Opposed say nay. The motion also carries unanimously. Number 2, resolution 2024 tax levies for provincial schools. Does any member wish to declare conflict of interest on this motion? Council, is there any discussion, any question to team members? Would someone like to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Dominado, seconded by Councillor Meissner. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. This motion also carries unanimously. Number 3, resolution 2024 tax levies for South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority, TransLink. Okay, does any member wish to declare conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to team members? Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bly. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Number 4, resolution 2024 tax levies for British Columbia Assessment Authority. Does any member wish to declare conflict of interest on this item? Council, are there any questions to team members? Would someone like to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Dominado. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. This motion carried unanimously. Number 5, almost there. Resolution 2024 tax levies for Municipal Finance Authority of British Columbia. Does any member wish to declare conflict of interest on this item? Council, are there any questions to team members? Would someone like to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Dominado. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. This motion also carries unanimously. All right, so the next item is notice of council members' motion. Are there notice of council members' motion for the upcoming standing committee meeting? Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have one entitled Piloting Pot Hotels in Vancouver, which is co-submitted by myself and Councillor Dominato, and it is for the May 29th Standing Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Boyle, please go ahead.
Thanks. I also have a motion for the May 29th Standing Committee meeting entitled Taking Action to Protect and Expand Arts and Culture Spaces.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Dominado.
Thank you, Chair. I also have a notice of motion for the May 29th Standing Committee meeting. It is entitled Allocating Additional Funds to Accelerate Pedestrian Safety Measures, and it is co-submitted by myself with yourself, Councillor Zhou.
Thank you, Councillor Dominado. So that's everything for notice of motion. So the next item is the new business. We have 2 items on the new business on the agenda today. Request for leave of absence as follows. For Councillor Boyle, for personal reasons, for meeting on May the 9th from 6 p.m. onwards. And also for Mayor Sim, May 7th, 5 p.m. onward for personal reason. Also Mayor Sim for May the 8th, 5 p.m. onwards for civic business. And also there's another one for myself, Councillor Joe, for May the 8th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. For civic business. Would someone like to move a motion? Moved by Councillor Meissner. It's the second by Councillor Fry. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. The next item is the change to the business license hearing panel as follows. Councillor Dominado replaced Councillor Montague as the chair at business license hearing on May 14th, 2024. And Councillor Carr replaced Councillor Dominado as the alternate at the business license hearing on May 14th, 2024. Would someone like to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Bly. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yea. Opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, so Council, are there any other items for new business? Councillor Boyle, please go ahead. Oh, so we just lost you, sorry. Okay, Councillor Fry?
Yeah, I'm just going to stand to, I attended Red Dress Day on Sunday, and it was incredibly powerful, and I, as a witness, I wanted to report back to all of you what I heard at that event, and Sheila Poorman was there, mother of Chelsea Poorman, with her surviving daughter, Paige, and spoke her truths, and person after person came forward and spoke their truths, and the systemic impacts of not just residential school, but ongoing violence and poverty. And yeah, we have a lot of work to do. I'll do that.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. I also want to speak on another somber matter to recognize Kim Novak, who was the youngest ever president of UFCW 1518, the United Food and Commercial Workers, the youngest president and the first female president. She also served as vice president of UFCW International and on the UFCW Canada National Council. She was on the board of Community Savings Credit Union. She was a tireless advocate. The Premier referred to her the other day as a bright light, which is as accurate a statement as I can think of. She was beloved by her members and by so many of us who knew her. She passed away this past weekend at age 38. She has 2 young kids who will miss her dearly, as will so many of us. And so just wanted to recognize and honor her huge contribution to working people and working families in this whole region.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Dominado.
Thank you, Chair, and just to express gratitude for my colleagues for raising both their concerns and considerations around murdered missing women, as well as Kim Novak's passing, and just offering condolences to her family. I simply wanted to share 2 things as a reminder, is that this week, May 6th to 12th, is Mental Health Week, and I think it's an important reminder for all of us about the importance of mental health and wellness, both to our friends, our families, our peers, our colleagues. There's still a lot of stigma about speaking about mental health, about mental illness, about challenges that I think many of us struggle with day to day or over periods of time. And so I'd like to just acknowledge the important role that many of our service providers offer here in the city to support individuals. And for some people, they may be visible to them. They may see people struggling with mental illness or substance use disorder. They may see them on our streets, but they may also be people that you're not seeing on our streets that are your friends, your family, your coworkers. And there are many nonprofits that provide a range of services to support people. And so just to share, I think it's an important week to showcase some of those organizations and to talk about mental health and wellness. And so I'll probably just wrap on that note. I was also going to note that it is Emergency Preparedness Week as well, which is also an important reminder for us to, I know organizationally we think about emergency preparedness, but for our families and households to think about what we need to do in the event, what we should have at home in the event of an emergency. And I wanted to highlight that as well for members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dominado. Councillor Fry.
Thanks, and sorry I got a little choked up there, but I did want to acknowledge some of our staff that helped make the space and make that happen. Diana Day at Park Board, Rachel Watney from Indigenous Relations, and Nicole Bird from Carnegie, who were all there and really making space to hear the voices and the sadness and the rage and the call to action to really do better, because we do need to do better. And you know, it's not just missing women, Indigenous women and girls, but increasingly it's Two-Spirit, it's boys and men. And we heard some incredibly powerful stories about what's happening in our city and what's not happening in our city. And it was a very powerful call to action for me. And I just wanted to sort of come back, but really big thanks to our staff for helping to make that happen as well and make that space in Grandview Park.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no one else on the queue, the next items inquiry and other matters. Council, are there any inquiries and other matters? Oh, okay, awesome. The next one is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Blythe, seconded by Councilor Boyle. The meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everyone. We're gonna be back at 1:15 at the in-camera meeting. 1:15. Thank you, everyone. 1:15? Yeah, thanks, everyone.